Just days ago, the Mann family was living the fairy tale gospel icons. Sitcom stars, the flawless image of love and laughter. Then Tiffany Mann opened her mouth, and suddenly the spotlight revealed cracks no one expected. On a tearful podcast, the usually quiet and loyal daughter of Tamela Mann spilled a truth so shocking, it blew the perfect family image to pieces. What started as a casual chat turned into a seismic confession that sent the gospel world reeling. And just hours later, police sirens screamed outside the Mann household. David Mann, beloved husband and stepfather, was arrested on domestic violence charges. This wasn't gossip, it was real life, messy and brutal. Fans who had adored Mr. Brown from Meet the Browns were now scrolling in disbelief as headlines flipped his joyful image upside down. The tangled story between Tiffany Mann, Tamela, and David has ignited a national conversation, unearthing years of silence, secrets, and buried pain. And if you think you know the whole story, think again. What comes next is about to shake everything you thought you knew. Leave you questioning everything. Oh honey, buckle up. It began like any other innocent guest spot. Tiffany Mann, powerhouse gospel voice and all-around private legend, sat across from the podcast host, smiling like she had no clue what storm was about to hit. For years, she'd stayed in the background, loyal daughter, private figure, zero headlines, zero drama. But today, everything flipped. The chat started normal enough. Music, faith, growing up in gospel royalty. Listeners leaned in, expecting inspiration. Cute, right? Then came the harmless question. What was it like growing up with David Mann as your stepfather? Tiffany froze. The room went icy. Even the microphone seemed to hold its breath. Her voice cracked. Tears popped. And then, in a whisper, almost like she couldn't believe it herself, she dropped the bomb. He was never a father to me. The host. Stunned. The crew. Silent. The internet. Obliterated. Nothing would ever look the same again. Oh, Tiffany Mann didn't stop there. With hands shaking and a voice trembling like a live wire, she revealed the truth nobody saw coming. David Mantha, goofy, lovable, halo-wearing husband everyone adored, never treated her like his own. Not behind closed doors, not in public, not once. This wasn't just hurt. This was years of buried reality exploding to the surface. And of course, within hours, the internet went nuclear. Clips of Tiffany's tearful confession lit up TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, leaving fans gasping, confused, and outraged. The question everyone whispered but nobody could answer. How could David Mann, that David Mann, be so radically different when the cameras were off? Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the real storm was brewing. To the outside world, David Mann was gospel's golden husband. Funny, devout, always smiling, untouchable. Not just Tamela's partner, he was her stage mate, her comedic foil, her spiritual counterpart. Together, they were a machine, a brand, a ministry, a powerhouse. From Meet the Browns to endless church tours, David played the part so flawlessly, most fans never questioned the act. Until now, he made people laugh. He sang those flawless gospel harmonies. He delivered tear-jerking devotionals beside Tamela Mann, moving entire congregations. But behind the glossy curtain, Tiffany Mann's words painted a much darker picture. He didn't treat me like his daughter. That wasn't just a confession, it was a fissure in a meticulously crafted image. The gospel world had cheered as David Mann uplifted artists, mentored young singers, even goofed around with kids on stage. But suddenly, skepticism exploded. Was it all just for show? Old interviews resurfaced, now cast in a sinister light. David praising his family while Tiffany was invisible. Red carpet photos where she lingered in the shadows or vanished entirely. What once screamed unity now looked like deliberate erasure. Fans started asking the unthinkable. Had Tiffany been unseen in her own home, smiling through silence as the world idolized her stepfather? And then came the whispers: insiders, former crew members, even quiet posts from those who'd worked behind the scenes, hinting at what everyone suspected but dared not say. Most stayed quiet publicly. But the message couldn't have been clearer. Tiffany Mann's pain wasn't new, it was just finally being heard. The flawless gospel facade was starting to crumble. And just as the image began to fracture, Tamela Mann made the call that would ignite the next shockwave. While the internet was still digesting Tiffany's raw confession, something real and urgent was unfolding behind closed doors, something nobody saw coming. Verified sources confirmed that mere hours after the podcast aired, Tamela picked up the phone and dialed 911. This wasn't a check-in or some feel-good call. It was serious. It was urgent. It was reality. She reported that her daughter had been physically assaulted. The alleged perpetrator, her own husband, David Mann. Within minutes, multiple police units swarmed the Mann household. The house, once imagined as a haven of gospel music and laughter, had become the epicenter of a domestic crisis. Tamela, known for her commanding voice and steadfast faith, delivered a devastating statement to the responding officers. No attempts to protect the image. No sugarcoating. She didn't bother with sugarcoating. Tamela Mann laid it all out, the truth, that her husband had hurt their daughter. This was one of those moments that shatters everything. Marriage, ministry, reputation. The 911 recording hasn't been released yet, but police insiders have confirmed it. Tamela remained calm but devastated. She told authorities her daughter was bruised. She admitted it wasn't the first time, and most importantly, she asked for help. This wasn't some publicity stunt. This wasn't for clout or sympathy. It was a mother putting her child's safety above her husband's image. When officers arrived, what they saw would send shockwaves far beyond the gospel world. Tamela didn't just recount events. She proved them, and what she revealed broke the internet. Words alone weren't enough to convince the world, but Tamela Mann knew exactly what she was doing. Hours after the 911 call, while news quietly trickled out that David Mann had been detained, Tamela made a choice that would rock the gospel community. She released one photo, a single undeniable image of her daughter. She didn't bother sugarcoating a thing. Tamela Mann laid it all bare, the brutal truth that her husband had harmed their daughter. This was one of those moments that shatters everything. Marriage, ministry, reputation. The 911 recording hasn't dropped yet, but police insiders confirm it. Tamela stayed composed, yet devastated. She told authorities her daughter was bruised, admitted it wasn't the first incident, trusted friends and family. Emotionally shattered, yet finally free to be heard. As David's booking photos circulated online, disbelief morphed into heartbreak. Church communities erupted into debate. Fans scrolled through old clips, trying to reconcile the man they once adored with the one now facing criminal charges. Some couldn't believe it. Others said they'd always sensed something was off. But one thing was undeniable. The Mann family would never be the same. With David behind bars, the world reevaluated the image so many had idolized. This wasn't just a fall from grace, it was the unraveling of gospel's most treasured brand. For years, the Manns weren't merely a gospel family. They were the gospel family. David and Tamela Mann symbolized something sacred in entertainment: love, faith, laughter, and unity. They were the couple who prayed together, performed together, and raised a blended family under the spotlight, seemingly without scandal. Or so everyone thought. Churches invited them to speak on marriage. Families pointed to them as proof that love could endure. Even amid Hollywood chaos, David Mann appeared untouchable. But that image shattered like fragile stained glass under pressure. Tiffany's podcast wasn't just a confession, it was a mirror, painfully reflecting what may have been hidden behind gospel harmonies and sitcom smiles. Social media started digging. Old interviews, family photos, behind-the-scenes footage surfaced. Fans noticed Tiffany was often absent from family-centered content. Clips of David joking about parenting but never mentioning Tiffany replayed in a new, unsettling light. What once seemed like harmless comedy now felt like coded silence. The backlash was immediate. Some fans felt betrayed. Others refused to believe it, defending David Mann and accusing Tamela Mann of overreacting. But for many, this wasn't about sides, it was about truth. Even the most admired families can carry secrets, pain, division, and emotional scars lurking behind the gospel legacy. While Tamela Mann's bravery in choosing her daughter over her marriage earned applause, others questioned how long she'd known and why now. The questions are endless, the answers still unfolding. One thing is clear: the perfect image is shattered. What remains is raw, complicated, and brutally real. As the truth spread, the internet didn't just watch, it erupted. Within hours of David Mann's arrest, hashtags flooded social media. Hashtag Justice for Tiffany. Hashtag I Stand with Tamela. Hashtag Mann Family Truth. Twitter threads dissected every second of Tiffany's podcast. TikTok creators shared prayers, reactions, and personal stories of step-parent trauma. Facebook and Instagram overflowed with side-by-side photos. David smiling on stage, Tiffany's bruised face. This wasn't just a scandal, it became a movement. Influential voices across gospel, entertainment, and spiritual circles weighed in. Some cautiously, others boldly. A few gospel artists dropped cryptic messages about protecting the innocent and letting truth shine. Others stayed silent, maybe too silent, and in that silence, speculation thrived. Fans wondered if this had been brewing behind the scenes for years, hushed to protect the Mann family brand. Others asked if Tiffany had ever been pressured to stay quiet for appearances. Then came the most damning reactions. Former collaborators and insiders started posting vague but emotional messages, no direct accusations, just subtle confirmations that something had always felt off. But it wasn't only anger flooding time. There was heartbreak for Tiffany Mann, for Tamela Mann, And even for David Mann, who once symbolized joy and light in black entertainment, now his name is tied to violence. And the longer his legal team stays silent, the louder the internet roars. Pressure is mounting. Fans demand accountability. They want court records. They want Tamela to speak more. They want Tiffany protected. They want the unvarnished truth. With every hour, the stakes climb higher. This isn't just about a family anymore, it's about who is believed and who is buried in silence. Through it all, one voice remains remarkably steady. Not silent, not erased, but unwavering. Tiffany Mann, at the heart of this emotional earthquake, hasn't posted rants. She hasn't gone live. She hasn't responded to the backlash, the speculation, or even the praise. Tiffany Mann didn't speak for clout, she spoke for freedom. Her tearful words on that podcast weren't staged or scripted. They were years of buried emotion finally breaking through. For the first time, fans saw her not just as Tamela's daughter, but as a woman courageous enough to protect her peace, even if it meant burning the fairy tale to the ground. Insiders say she's surrounded by a tight circle of supporters, receiving emotional care and keeping clear of online chaos. And while the world debates her truth, Tiffany isn't backing down. She already faced the hardest part, she told it. Meanwhile, the fallout ripples through the gospel industry. Some events featuring the Manns quietly disappeared from schedules. A few gospel artists unfollowed David Mann on social media. Church groups who once booked the couple for marriage conferences are rethinking everything. Tamela grieves the collapse of her marriage, while standing by her daughter. Sources say divorce isn't off the table. Legal action may continue, and future statements will be made in court. This isn't the end of the Mann family story, but it is the end of the illusion. As the dust settles, one thing is clear. Tiffany Mann didn't just tell her truth, she survived it. One podcast, one question, one tearful answer that changed everything. In just days, her quiet bravery unraveled years of silence, exposed cracks behind gospel's golden couple, and sent shockwaves through an entire industry. The image of perfection is gone, replaced by something far more human, raw, complicated, and painful. Tamela Mann, torn between loyalty to her husband and love for her daughter, made a choice many women in her position never summoned the courage to make. She chose her child, and in doing so lost the man she once called partner, protector, and best friend. David Mann now faces the full weight of legal consequences and public scrutiny, not as a gospel icon, not as Mr. Brown, but as a man confronting the reality of his actions. And Tiffany, she may have entered that podcast as a daughter seeking healing, but she emerged as something more. A voice for every person ever silenced behind a smile. This story isn't over, not by a long shot. Court records are coming, more interviews may follow, and the gospel world will be forced to reckon with the fact that even the brightest voices can emerge from the darkest pain. If you think this is the final chapter, think again. What comes next may change everything. Stay tuned. Stay aware. Everything. Stay tuned. Stay aware.